I'm having a cortado, which is like my favorite espresso and milk kind of drink, because it's basically 2 shots of espresso and steamed milk, steamed kind of like a latte, so a little bit on the thinner side. And what's cool about it is it's kind of like little cards espresso, and so they both have like kind of equal billing. It's not like if you drink a latte, it's mostly a milk drink, and if you drink a macchiato, like the espresso is really dominant. And here they both get to kind of play together.
Body odors, dirty tweets.
I had started a business prior to this, right around the time that 9/11 happened, and I was in the printing business before that. And I had started this new business, and I did that for a couple of years. So I got a lot of good experience. After a couple of years, it was just like, it was kind of solitary, because it was kind of like a wholesale publishing sort of business that I was in, and I didn't get to interact with people very often. I started thinking I wanted to do something else, and having had a taste of being like independent person, like a business entrepreneur, I couldn't stomach the idea really of going back to work for somebody at that point. It's like I couldn't like unring that bell. I couldn't take that step backwards. So I wanted to open another type of business, and I wanted it to be, something more sociable, something where like I actually went to a certain place every day, and I started, kind of thinking to myself, what is it that I want to do? What kind of business do I want to provide? I've always been drawn to like culinary things, and I was bartending for a couple years before I embarked on this whole printing career, and I really like that kind of aspect of like making drinks, and I like the hustle, kind of like moving fast, and serving people. Like I really like, there's something about me that likes to be like service and hospitality. And I like having regulars, people who come in on a regular basis, and kind of get to know them, little by little, and you have this kind of dialogue that develops over time. And I'd grown up with coffee being a big part of my culture, so coffee kind of kept bumping up to the top of my list. I started getting more and more into the idea of having a coffee shop, and then I started researching it, and that really kind of opened my eyes to some interesting things that were happening in the coffee world. Like this new crop of coffee people who were like taking coffee very seriously, and like getting very serious about how they were preparing it, and how they were sourcing it, and how they were roasting it. There was this really cool sense of camaraderie among coffee people, and I was really drawn to that as well, because that's not the usual kind of way to go about business. Most industries, it's like everybody sees themselves as competitors, whereas I think more, and this is probably true of all culinary things, bartenders and chefs for sure have a long tradition of, kind of sharing knowledge, not seeing themselves so much as competitors, but as comrades, or, like peers. It was important to me to become a barista first, so I kind of like paid my dues. I went through that. I started doing some training sessions, and then I met a guy who had been brought to New York to run a coffee shop, and we got to talking, and I told him what I was doing, and he hired me. And so I got this really intensive like apprenticeship thing under my belt, where then I became like an actual skilled barista on bar, and it was that for about a year. Because like I said, it was very important for me to become a very skilled barista myself before opening a coffee shop. A lot of people, they think a coffee shop is like a romantic idea, they think it's going to be fun, they think it's going to be this and that and the other thing, and they just have the money, and they open a coffee shop and they hire people, hopefully who know what they're doing. I didn't like that model. It's hard for me to lead from a position of like not knowing what I'm doing. I've never been that type of person. In any job that I've had where I've, say I've risen to some kind of leadership position, it's always because like I've come through the ranks, so to speak. I think that's the most kind of effective way to run something. I'm very proud to say I'm a barista owner. versus just an owner, and that informs a lot about what happens here because it's barista driven. We have a very open philosophy to customer service. We have a high emphasis on customer service. It's easy to fall into a trap when you're doing something kind of at a high level where you look down on people, or like a customer comes in, they don't know exactly too much about coffee, let's say, and you kind of like frown on it. If they want to put milk in sugar in it or whatever, you kind of turn your nose at that. It's very kind of off-putting. As much as I love all the nuances of coffee and talking about coffee and geeking out over how to prepare it and all these things, I also like the social aspect of coffee, like two people sitting down over a cup of coffee and being like in a warm, cool place. I just don't see the need to like throw a lot of attitude at it. I kind of built this place in that regard, where it has a little something for everyone. So if you're like a real coffee geek, you can come in here and we can go to town with you. We can talk about all kinds of stuff. And there are single origin coffees that we have brew to order, and we can talk to you about those, what their profiles are, etc. We go through how we brew it and what our process is. If you just want a cup of coffee, like we have that too, it's ready to go. We have it, batch brew, actually do small batches, but batch brew it. And you get regular drip coffee. There's nothing regular about the coffee that's in that coffee. It's really, really good. It's really like world class quality. But we don't have to we don't have to talk about it.
Hey ladies! Hey ladies!
Leo and Oliver started coming to the shop as soon as we opened up, basically. They lived nearby, and they would come in, and we had the same banter, let's say, I have with everybody else that walks in here day in and day out. And then one day he told me that he had opened up this taqueria over by Union Square, and we got to talking about that. From that point on, we had that in common, that we had opening businesses around the same time, and I went out there because I made tacos, so I went out and saw what they were doing. It was really cool. Like they have a really cool aesthetic and vibe. It was kind of similar. I saw a lot of similarities between us in many different ways. Like they're doing things right. Everything's fresh and good, and it's made to order. And those guys are just phenomenal. Like they're really cool guys.
Hey ladies!
I think on a daily basis, I'd say my staff, people who work here, people in coffee at bars, inspire me a lot. When we get together, we kind of talk shop about coffee and stuff. It's really cool when we get together for sort of event. I'm privileged to do a barista competition this past year now. That really inspires you when you start connecting with other people who have similar or same passion that you do for the same thing. There's a lot of good stuff that happens out of that, and you pick up a lot of inspiration, a lot of good ideas, and you just feel good about what you're doing.
The voice I can't